At 20, you believe that happiness is in the next achievement. At 25, he thinks he's at the next job. At 30, you finally understand that something is fundamentally wrong with this search. Viktor Frankl knew why. Have you ever won what you wanted and still feel empty inside? Already had that moment when it looks at the life you built, the stable job, the tidy apartment, the relationship that works, and still feel like something crucial is missing. This feeling is not your failure. It is your soul trying to tell you something that modern society has refused to teach. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived 3 Nazi concentration camps, discovered something revolutionary in the most unlikely place in the world: that the pursuit of happiness is actually a trap, and that at age 30, when life has already tested us enough, we are finally ready to hear this truth, not as an abstract theory, but as a practical compass to navigate the emptiness that no one warned you that it would come along with the achievements. Until the 30, most of our decisions is based on a great cultural lie, the idea that happiness is the ultimate goal of human existence. We grew up listening to "do what makes you happy, seek your happiness, you deserve to be happy." And we follow this recipe faithfully. We study to be happy, we work to be happy, we relate to be happy, we buy things to be happy. But then the 30 come, and with them a disturbing revelation. You did everything right, won what you wanted, and happiness remains a sporadic visitor, not a permanent resident. It's as if it had spent decades chasing a ghost, believing he was real because everyone said it was. Viktor Frankl understood this frustration deeply. Before concentration camps, he also believed that personal satisfaction was what would move a significant life. But when everything was taken from him, family, profession, dignity, even the name replaced by a number, he discovered something that revolutionized not only his own existence, but our understanding of the human psyche. In the darkest moments of humanity, surrounded by death and despair, Frankl observed something extraordinary. People who survived were not necessarily the most physically strong, nor the most optimistic. They were those who found a sense to support suffering, a purpose that transcended one's own pain. And here is the turnaround that changed everything. These people were not seeking happiness, they were seeking meaning. And paradoxically, in stopping happiness, they discovered something much deeper. A reason to continue that it did not depend on external circumstances. Have you ever noticed how the most accomplished people you know rarely talk about happiness? They talk about purpose, about contribution, about something greater than themselves. Not because they are unhappy, but because they have found that happiness is a consequence, not a destination. Frankl called this the search for meaning, and explained that when you find something it is worth living, happiness appears naturally, as a byproduct. But when you seek happiness directly, it becomes slippery, almost impossible to grab. It's like trying to get your own shadow. The more you run after it, the more it goes away. At 30, many of us already run enough to realize that something is wrong with the strategy. And this perception is not the end of anything. It is the beginning of everything. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning and realizing that you have everything you always wanted, but still feels a strange empty on your chest. The work is doing well, the accounts are up to date, the relationship is stable. But there is a question that doesn't want to shut up. Is that all? This moment of discomfort is not depression. It is not ingratitude. It is your soul knocking on the door, asking for something that the material world cannot offer. This is what Frankl called existential emptiness, that feeling that life is working but not making sense. Viktor Frankl saw the 30 as a crucial age because it is when we usually have experienced enough to realize that the traditional successful recipe has missing ingredients. You have had time to test the hypothesis of external happiness. Already bought things, has already gained positions, already had relationships, has traveled to beautiful places, and if you are honest with yourself, you have realized that none of this permanently fills that empty space that seems to grow along with the achievements. It is as if each achievement brought with it the question, now what? And the more you have, the more this question becomes urgent. Frankl found that this restlessness is not a personality defect. It is a call from the soul to something deeper. This is the moment when life stops asking, "What do you want?" and it starts asking, "What do you fit?" And this change of question changes everything, because when you stop pursuing happiness and begins to seek meaning, something extraordinary happens. The things that once seemed important, status, approval, accumulation, begin to lose strength. And other things you may have ignored, contribution, connection, growth, start shining with new light. At 30, you have enough emotional baggage to understand that life is not an amusement park where you pay admission to be entertained. It is a school where you are called to contribute, to grow, to make something better than you found. And this understanding, although sometimes scares, also releases, because it means you can stop chasing sensations and start building meanings. You can stop measuring your life for the amount of pleasure you experience and start measuring it with the quality of the impact you generate. It is a subtle but revolutionary change. Frankl watched that when someone finds his why, he can withstand almost any how. And this applies not only to extreme situations such as concentration camps, but to the 30-year-old, when responsibilities increase and tolerance for futility decreases. Have you noticed how easier it is to wake up when there is something important to do? How does tiredness disappear when you are involved in something you consider truly relevant? This is no coincidence. It is your nervous system responding to meaning, not happiness. The pursuit of happiness teaches us to escape discomfort. The search for meaning teaches us how to transform fuel discomfort. And at 30, when life charges us more presence, more maturity, more consistency, this difference becomes crucial to our mental and emotional health. But let me be clear about one important thing. Viktor Frankl was not preaching against happiness. He was explaining why chasing her directly is counterproductive. It's like trying to force sleep when you have insomnia. The more you strive, the more it goes away. Happiness, according to Frankl, is a side effect of significant life. When you are deeply involved with something you find valuable, be a job, a relationship, a cause, a creative project, satisfaction appears naturally, not as objective, but as a result. And here there is a discovery that can completely change your perspective. You don't need perfect circumstances to have a significant life. Frankl proved this as far as possible. Even deprived of all, he found sense to help other prisoners mentally preserve a manuscript he had written to keep the hope of rediscovering his wife alive. This means that you can start building meaning, now exactly where it is. You don't have to wait for the promotion, the ideal relationship, the home of your own. The meaning is not something you find out there. It's something you create in here, with the materials you have available. At 30, you have already lived enough to identify standards. You already know which activities drain you and which they energize you, which relationships decrease you and which expand you, what environments suffocate you and which inspire you. This is the raw material for building a meaningful life. Frankl said that each person has a unique mission to accomplish, a specific contribution to offer, and that this mission is not grand in the Hollywood sense. It can be to educate your children well. It can be to make your work environment more human. It can be creating art that taps people. It can simply be a presence of kindness in the world. The grandeur is not the size of the impact, but in the authenticity of the contribution. And at 30, you already have enough clarity about your values and talents to start identifying what your particular way of serving the world may be. But this process requires something that our culture has difficulty accepting: the willingness to look beyond themselves. Happiness as an ultimate goal is, by nature, egocentric. The meaning, on the other hand, is naturally transcendent. He pulls us out of ourselves. Viktor Frankl noted that the most fulfilled people they knew had a common feature: they forgot themselves when they were involved in something significant. Not by self-denial, but for genuine involvement. As an artist who loses the notion of time when he is raising, or a father who has no effort when he is taking care of his son. This is the most beautiful irony of human existence. When we stop focusing obsessively in our own happiness and began to dedicate ourselves to something greater, we discover a much deeper and lasting satisfaction than any momentary pleasure can offer. At 30, you are in the perfect age to make this transition. It's not too young to understand the nuances of life, not too old to change direction. It is the moment when experience finds energy, wisdom finds courage, and clarity finds the determination. Frankl believed that each phase of life has its specific tasks, and the task of 30 is not to maximize pleasures or minimize pain. It is finding something that makes sense of both pleasures and pain, something that transforms its existence of a succession of random moments into a coherent narrative. It may be the decision to become the best version of yourself to contribute better to your family. It may be a commitment to use your professional talents to solve real problems. It may be the dedication to a cause that you consider fair, or it may simply be the intention to live with more presence and less hurry. The important thing is not the specific way this takes, but the fundamental change of guidance. To seek what the world can do for you, to find out what you can do around the world. And this change, although simple in the description, is revolutionary in practice. Because when you live oriented by meaning instead of happiness, some important things happen. First, you become more resilient. Problems continue to appear, but now you have a greater context to understand them. These are not just obstacles to your happiness. These are growth opportunities, character tests, materials to build wisdom. Second, you become more present. When each day has purpose, each moment gains weight. You stop living on autopilot, hoping that life will improve someday in the future, and start fully inhabiting what is happening now. Third, you become more connected. The search for sense naturally connects it with others, either through collaborative work, the service to common causes, or simply the willingness to contribute to relationships rather than just extracting them. Viktor Frankl saw this transformation as a kind of spiritual maturity, not in the religious sense necessarily, but in the sense of recognizing that you are part of something greater and that your life gains meaning as it contributes to this whole. At 30, you have lived enough to realize that life is not a banquet prepared for your personal pleasure. It is a collective project where each person has a function. And find out what its function is, and to embrace it completely, that is what transforms the existence of a burden into a gift. But this discovery requires something that our consumerist culture makes it difficult: the patience to hear more than to talk to contribute more than to consume, to build more than to acquire. It is a change of rhythm that can scare those who are used to the speed of the pursuit of immediate happiness. Frankl noted that the meaning, unlike happiness, does not come in intense gusts. He slowly builds himself, like a cathedral, with small, daily acts of meaning. A gesture of kindness here, a moment of presence there, a courageous decision there. And at 30, you have enough time and experience to enjoy this gradual construction. Life is no longer an emotional roller coaster where you go up and down as external circumstances, and becomes a journey with direction, where each step has purpose, even when the terrain is difficult. It is a stability that does not come from the absence of problems, but from the presence of meaning. And here is perhaps the most liberating discovery of all. When you guide your life by meaning instead of happiness, you stop being hostage to circumstances. It may be going through a difficult time at work, but if you know why you are there and where you are going, you can stand and even grow with difficulties. It may be facing relationship problems, but if you understand your responsibility to contribute to the partnership, you find motivation to work on issues instead of simply running away when happiness decreases. It may be dealing with losses and frustrations, but if you have a greater sense of purpose, you can integrate these experiences rather than destroyed by them. Viktor Frankl called it inner freedom, the ability to choose his response to any situation, regardless of external circumstances. And this freedom is not a gift that some people are born with her. It is a skill that develops when you stop outsourcing your well-being to the outside world and assumes responsibility to create meaning internally. At 30, you have enough emotional maturity to exercise this freedom. You have learned that the world will not organize to maximize your happiness. He has already realized that other people have their own agendas and limitations. It is already understood that life includes inevitable doses of difficulty and uncertainty. But instead of seeing this as a sentence of suffering, you can see as a call to greatness. Not the greatness of the ego, which wants to be admired and applauded, but the greatness of the soul, which wants to serve and contribute. And this is a greatness accessible to anyone under any circumstances. Frankl proved this as radically as possible. Even reduced to the basics of human survival, he found ways to live with dignity, to help others, to preserve his humanity. If this is possible in a concentration camp, it is certainly possible in your current life, with all the resources and opportunities you have available. The question is not if you can live a significant life. The question is whether you are willing to exchange the search for constant happiness for the construction of lasting sense. It is an exchange that requires courage, because it means accepting that life includes discomfort and that you can grow through it, instead of just trying to avoid it. But it is also an exchange that offers something that no amount of momentary happiness can give: the deep satisfaction of knowing that your life matters, that you are not just taking up space or consuming resources. That is contributing, growing, leaving the world a little better for its passage. Viktor Frankl said that when you find something it is worth living for, it automatically finds something for which it is worth dying. And while this may sound dramatic, it is actually a very practical description of the difference between existing and living, between occupying time and creating value, between seeking happiness and building meaning. At 30, you are in the perfect age to make this choice consciously, not because it's too late to change, but because it's early enough for this change to shape the next decades of your life. And when you look back in a few years, you will realize that this is when your real life began, not the life you thought you wanted, based on constant happiness and absence of problems, but the life you really needed, based on clear purpose and continuous growth. A life that may include moments of intense happiness, but does not depend on them to have value. A life that makes sense even when it is difficult. Especially when it is difficult. Because it is precisely in times of difficulty that meaning is more clearly offering escape from reality, but transformation through it. If you got here and felt something moving inside, a good restlessness, a curiosity about what could be different, so maybe you are ready for this change. It does not need a great revelation or a dramatic transformation. You just need the willingness to start asking different questions. Instead of, how can I be happier? Ask, how can I be more useful? Instead of, what do I want from life? Ask, what does life want from me? Instead of, how to avoid suffering? Ask, how can I grow through difficulties? These are small perspective changes that can generate major changes of experience. Viktor Frankl knew that the search for meaning is not a philosophical luxury. It is a basic psychological need. And at 30, when responsibilities increase and juvenile fantasies decrease, this need becomes more urgent. It can be felt as a crisis, but it is actually an opportunity, perhaps the greatest opportunity of your adulthood. The opportunity to stop living as a tourist in their own existence and start living as a citizen. To stop asking what the world can do for you and start finding what you can do around the world. To change the search for happiness, which is always slippery, for the construction of meaning, which is always possible. Because in the end, Viktor Frankl was not just talking about survival in extreme conditions. I was talking about how to live fully in any condition. How to find reasons to continue when things get difficult. How to build a life that matters, not just a life that entertains. And at 30, you have everything you need to start this construction. The experience to know what really matters. The energy to make significant changes. And the time for these changes to develop in something beautiful and lasting. Life is offering a new question. No, are you happy? But, your life makes sense. And the answer to this question does not depend on external circumstances. It depends on your willingness to set aside the pursuit of happiness as an ultimate goal and embrace the construction of meaning as a fundamental purpose. Viktor Frankl proved that this is possible in the worst circumstances imaginable. You may prove that it is possible in your current circumstances. The only difference is the decision to start. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's what your soul has been asking for so long. No more happiness, sense, no more pleasure, purpose, no more escape from difficulties, transformation through them. Life is waiting for your answer, and at 30, You are finally ready to give it.